Welcome to the Real Estate Pros of Houston podcast, where host Mark Zachary talks to high-producing real estate agents in the Houston area about their story and what makes them so successful. Each episode, our guests will tell you what they're doing that works and what makes them so successful, as well as insights that will help you take your business to the next level. Now, here's Mark delivering a true real estate pro of Houston.
Hey everybody, Mark Zachary with Next Step Home Loans and the host of Real Estate Pros of Houston. And today I wanted to introduce to you Janna Fox. I have another podcast and it's called Inside Houston Real Estate. And so we had interviewed her for that podcast. And so I thought, you know what, we need to have her on my podcast, which is Real Estate Pros of Houston. So instead of having to interview her twice and take up her time, and because she's super busy, I thought I would just use the video that we shot for Inside Houston Real Estate and put it on Real Estate Pros of Houston podcast. So we're going to do that, and I know you're going to enjoy listening to Janna. She's one of the most knowledgeable credit repair persons or people that I know. And so you're going to really enjoy hearing her story and why she is so compassionate about what she does and the people she works for, and why she has such a passion for her job. She's one of the best around. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the recording, and we'll see you next time on Real Estate Pros of Houston. But if you're also looking for a podcast that has a lot to do with real estate in general, check out our Inside Houston Real Estate podcast. We have chamber presidents, we have plumbers, electricians, AC people, solar panel people. It's a great podcast. We're getting a lot of positive comments on that. So check out that one as well. So, all right, I'll let you go and enjoy the broadcast. Take care. Bye-bye. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Inside Houston Real Estate. And today we have a return guest, and we're so glad to have her. She's just sought after in this industry right now, and I've seen her on several podcasts, but I think we had her first. We had her first about 2 months ago, and so now she's back, and so glad to have her. And we're missing Craig Carter today, who's on the road to Oklahoma to celebrate his mother's 85th birthday. So we're going to miss him today, but he said to send you his best, Janna, and he'll see you next time, because I got a feeling you may just have to be a quarterly guest if you have time. So we'll start paying you maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And then Ron Wilshire is having some technical difficulties, so he's just in the background. He's listening, and he's going to raise his hand and send a text if he has some questions pop up. So we get Janna on half of the screen versus a fourth of the screen when everybody's together. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that. So, Janna, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're, like I said, a lot of people are looking for your time right now, and we appreciate you giving us some time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, we always like to start off the podcast with a question about your story. I know, like I said, you've been on the podcast before, and so you've shared your story in depth. But give us a recap of your story, how you ended up in the ReScore business or the credit repair business. ReScore is your name of your company. But give us a high level of your history.
So, long story short, I was in a divorce situation. I was a single mom with 5 kids, and I needed to obviously take care of me and my kiddos. And so I thought I had credit. I was married pretty young. We had houses, cars, rental properties, everything else. But when I found myself in a divorce situation, needing to take care of me and my kids, I kept getting turned down, and I didn't understand why. And so I thought, well, I guess I have bad credit. Well, long story short, I didn't have bad credit. I didn't have any credit. So everything was in my ex-husband's name. I was at home having kiddos. So they didn't add me to any of the loans or anything like that. But I didn't understand that. So then I hired a credit repair company. I was very, very broke at the time. I was working 3 jobs, and I paid them $150 a month for 7 months, regardless if something got removed or not. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just knew I needed help for me and my kids. So I spent $150 for 7 months. After the 7 months, I still needed to be on my little sister's cell phone bill, or cell phone program to have a cell phone. And I still couldn't get a roof over my head for me and my kids. So I had a really, really, it was very deflating. And I had a really bad taste in my mouth for credit repair industry as a whole. And then as luck would have it, I ran into another credit repair company, and I started learning the difference in a good ethical credit repair company and one that, I'm not going to say they're not ethical, but maybe one that doesn't get the full picture, right? It's more than just like removing negative items from the credit report. No one sat down with me and said, Janna, you need to establish credit, and this is how you do that. Or if you don't have credit, you're not going to have a FICO score, therefore you're going to continue to get turned down. And what they needed to tell me is, let's start with a secure credit card. Or do you have anyone you could be an authorized user with? But no one said that to me. They were just going after these medical bills that I had and then being like, all right, well, we're done. So that's the reason why I do what I do, is I want to make sure that anybody in my situation or similar situations from mine has a resource to go to and can get the help needed. The internet's very self-serving. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. You can read about the same topic and get 2 different answers. So I really try hard, and it's my priority to make sure that I'm a good, sound resource for our referral partners, loan officers and real estate agents, to send their clients to, that they can get good, honest feedback and credit evaluations. I'm never going to charge somebody for something they can do themselves. I will give them guidance all day long. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I had a problem myself in my own personal life. I definitely was not 8 years old thinking I was going to be a credit repair specialist. I didn't even know what that was, but life happened. I saw a need, and I want to help other people that were in my situation.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a sad story that you ended up there, but man, you got to know that there are a lot of people that have been in that same situation or are currently in that same situation, and you just never, you made a comment on another podcast that I watched, and you said, and I wrote it down, so I think I'm going to quote you exactly, but your scores are not a character rating. It's a credit rating, and so expand on that for me, because I think so many people think that, man, I have a bad score, so that just makes me a bad person, or they have a loan officer or a realtor that says, well, what's your score? Well, it's 580. Oh, you must, or 550. Well, you must not be a good person, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said that. And I think the thing that people have to understand, especially if you've been in it before, there's a shame factor that goes along with it. And I wish there wasn't. And, a lot of times I'll talk to someone on the phone, and before we even get to what's going on with their credit, they're overly explaining, which is perfectly fine. I get it. I did it too. But they're overly explaining how, I lost a spouse, or I ended up having cancer and a medical issue, or, or my situation, I was at home having babies. I had 5 kids. Like I didn't know, my job was to make chicken, pork chops, and raise humans, and so I didn't even know what questions to ask. So very rarely in the 12 years I've done this, I would say there's maybe a handful of times that someone just had a lot more going on than credit stuff, and they were their own worst enemy, if you will. Most of the time it's a life happens, divorce, medical issue, lack of knowledge, all of these factors that come into it. And unfortunately, the credit bureaus, they hang on to this stuff for 7 years. I mean, you can make a mistake in it. Well, I make this joke, but you can make a mistake in a marriage, and usually your spouse forgives you after about 4 or 5. They quit bringing it up all the time. And the credit bureaus, are just hanging on to this like 7 years later, like, nope, you did this, and it's just very, very unfortunate. And so I really want everyone to understand that it is exactly that. It is a credit rating, not a character rating. And it is a 3-digit number that keeps people from being able to get a home, being able to get a car, being able to get a credit card. And it doesn't need to be like that. But if you know the rules of the game and you know how to play, all of a sudden you can win. But if you don't know, and the internet, like I said a little bit ago, is very self-serving, And there's so much bad information out there. I mean, here's an example. If you have a collection other than medical, that's going to be my fine print, other than medical. If you have a collection that shows up on your credit report and you pay it, you can actually damage your scores. You can lower your scores significantly. In fact, I had a client just recently that had a $42 Comcast collection that was from 5 years ago when he was in college, and $42, that's it. So he's like, oh, I want to buy a house. So he's getting married, all these things. I want to buy this house for me and my new wife. So he pays the $42 collection thinking he's doing the right thing, right? Common sense would tell you that's the right thing. And you would think it would be removed from the credit report. Well, it wasn't. It was just showed up as a paid collection, and his scores dropped by 80 points. He had more points taken from him than he had dollars owed from 5 years ago.
Wow.
So if you don't know what you're doing, you're really going to accidentally wreak havoc on your credit and your credit scores. And it's very counterintuitive of what you would think you should do. You think, let me pay this, I'm going to get rewarded from it. And that's the exact opposite of what happens. So what it did is it re-aged that 5-year-old collection. It changed the last date of activity, date reported, and it hit the algorithm as if it was a brand new collection on his credit report, and it dropped his points 80 points. So
is that the case for every TransUnion, Equifax? Do all three of them have that same algorithm to bring forward that date of last activity, which is what they go off of? Do they all do that if you pay it off?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Yeah, all three of them. It'll show up as a paid collection or satisfied, paid. I think some of the verbiage is like settle for less than full amount, anything like that. But at the moment that last date of activity changes or the date changes, it's just an algorithm. It's not a person, behind a computer screen calculating all of these things out with a human brain that says, okay, this is a paid collection. So they paid the collection. It's an algorithm that states, okay, this is a collection now. So now we paid it. The last date of activity changes and it hits the algorithm like it's a brand new collection. And a lot of people don't know that. Now, if you're dealing with medical collections, that's completely different because of the No Surprises Act that was passed in July of 2022. And what that act states is that if you have a medical collection on your credit report, you can pay it and it'll be removed from the credit report. And then starting in July of 2023, they're not supposed to report any medical collections that is $499 or less. So if you have anything that shows up, or even with your clients or anybody that's watching this, if you have a medical collection after July of 2023 that is less than $500 that's showing up on your credit report, you can do something about that should not be on there. So go ahead and pay medical collections, but any other collection, you definitely need to get some help and guidance.
So they will remove the medical collection, but
Correct.
the other ones just bring up the date of last activities.
Yeah, and it harms their scores rather than help. And it's so it's so unfair because a consumer is obviously not going to know that. So they think that they're doing the right thing by paying it and they actually hurt themselves. Yeah. And by the way, removing a paid collection off of a credit report is so difficult. The ball is not in our court at that point. They have their money, they don't care, especially on closed accounts. There's just no negotiation power at that point. They have what they want. So it makes it very, very hard to get those removed. It's not 100% impossible, but I would say we have a 10% chance of being able to get it removed. It's really tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody is about to need a service of credit repair, other than calling me and then I'm going to forward them to you, but what are they looking for? You said you paid $150 a month for 7 months and nothing really improved. So obviously that is not the type of credit repair person you want to use, because their business model is to have you in this as long as they possibly can. So what else are they looking for that you would say, hey, stay away from this, or this is a good one? And obviously I refer anybody that needs your services, I refer them to you guys. I haven't had that many, but we're kind of personally going through some situations where my health issue a year and a half ago has really started to just hammer away. And it's amazing how fast you can get in trouble with collections and late pays on this or that, just because. I mean, I went into hospital one day after I fell and broke my hip back in January, and it was $60,000 or $70,000.
Yes.
So it's just amazing how fast you can get upside down and in trouble. And what that saying that I read a while ago really spoke to me, because I don't think my character has changed any. I was a good credit guy before. I'm a good credit guy now. But we're starting to hit having some issues with our credit because of a medical situation that was completely out of my control.
Yeah. Isn't that sad, Mark? I think that's a thing that it breaks my heart and it burns a fire in my belly that you have people that something medical that happens to you has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to pay back a loan. And what those FICO scores are actually supposed to be calculating is if you can pay back a loan, if you're fundable, if you're mortgage ready, you know, and all of those things. And someone that has a medical issue, it has nothing to do with being able to pay back those loans if they're responsible, if they're not. And it takes 7 years to have perfect credit and 30 days to destroy it, you know, and it could be one medical issue that happens. And I mean, the medical prices are out of control. I avoid going to the doctor because of that. You know, I mean, I would rather just drink apple juice, hug a tree, and hope for the best. That's not the greatest policy in the world, you know, but it just keeps me.
Man, I wish I'd have done that.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I mean, not to like be a Debbie Downer, but one of the extremely realistic and sad, horrible things is my little brother that was 30, man, I hope my sister-in-law doesn't watch this because she'll be bawling, but he was 37 years old and had a terrible asthma attack a couple days before your medical stuff. And he was so worried about putting his family in financial debt because I had a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 5-month-old that he refused to go to the hospital, and he died. He died of an asthma attack on September 25th because he went 14 minutes without air. And if he would have felt like, yes, and he has 3 little kids, and now we don't have him anymore. And the reason why, Mark, is because he felt like he couldn't go to the hospital and put his family in financial risk because of that. That, I mean, I'm getting chills even talking about it. It makes me so angry, but that's what that is the harsh reality of where we're at. Because they're a young couple, they have young children. He didn't want to, in his quest not to put his family in a financial bind, he lost his life. That's real, you know, and that's why I say, like, the medical stuff is terrible, and it really is a sore spot for me anyway because of that, you know, because it's affected my life tremendously, obviously, and my nieces and nephews and sister-in-law. But to answer your question, what do you look for in a credit repair company? I think that's very, very important. And first of all, I want to say I love my industry. I love it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it. There is a really, really good handful of credit repair companies that are ethical. They know what they're doing. They're certified in reading credit reports. They can spot out those errors. They do the full picture. They help people establish credit. They get them on their way. There are other credit repair companies that I wish would do better. I'll say that, because as a whole,
you're so nice. That is such a nice way to put you're a loser of a company.
Yeah, but it just puts a bad name on our industry as a whole. But the 3 things that you definitely want to look for when you're looking for a credit repair company is, number 1, you want to make sure that they partner with, are owned by, or work alongside an attorney. And the reason why that's so important is because by law, credit reports have to be timely, accurate, and verifiable. And when they're not, that's when the law steps in. So there's so many things that I'll teach people, and they say that should be against the law. It is, but no one knows their rights and doesn't know the laws. So if you're working with a credit repair company, and by the way, side note, even if it has the word law in their name, doesn't mean they work alongside, owned by, or partner with an attorney. So you need to follow up the question with, how many times have you sued the credit bureaus and or collection companies? Because if they don't have that power, truth be known, that a consumer can actually do more for themselves than what a credit repair company can. So you want to make sure that, are they owned by, work alongside, or partner with an attorney? The next question is, how many times have you sued the credit bureaus and the collection companies? Very important. The next thing you want to find out is you want to make sure that credit repair company is only charging those consumers for the items they remove from the credit report. The reason why that's so important is as a business decision, if they're getting money, like what happened to me, if they're getting money every month, regardless if something is removed or not, what is the motivation to get things done and cleaned up quickly? There isn't any.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be better if they drag the process out. So when you work with a credit repair company that sets it up where they only charge, let's say they go after 25 collections and only remove 15, they only charge for the 15 they removed, not the 25 we went after. That keeps it where there's little to no risk, and there's a big motivation for that company to get things removed for that consumer, because if they don't pay their bills. And there's a lot of overhead cost owning a credit repair company. I think most people would fall out of their chair if they realized how much it cost for us to help and on the behalf of our clients, even postage alone and going back and forth with attorneys and things like that. There's a lot of overhead cost. So we obviously want to get in there and get it done quickly. And other companies that are set up like mine, the motivation is to clean up the client, not to drag it out as long as they can. And then the third thing that they want to look for is open communication and that teaching aspect of it. In my situation, no one sat down with me and said, Janna, you need to establish credit and here's how to do it. When I would try to apply for credit, I got denied and I didn't understand why. It's because I didn't have credit. So I needed someone to sit down with me and say, if I was my own client way back in the day, I would say, okay, Janna, here we're at. We have a few medical collections we want to address. And this is before the No Surprises Act. So if I would have paid them, it would have hurt my score. So I needed them removed. So let's remove these negative, items on your credit report. There wasn't a lot, maybe 5. And then what you need to do is you need to go and apply for a secure credit card. You want to make sure that it reports to all 3 bureaus. All of those type of things, setting me down and letting me know, I would have done it. I would have done anything they told me to. They just didn't tell me to. So the education piece of it, and here's the other thing, and a lot of people get blown away by this. You need to understand that you can't just go on a credit report and just remove anything negative. For example, we had a client that had 11-year-old credit card, ran into tough times, medical, ran into tough times, couldn't pay their credit card bill. It went into charge-off status. Now, if I would have removed that negative item, and you would think, oh, that's a charge-off, you want that off, right? No, because what would have happened if I would have lowered their scores? And the reason why is because I would be eliminating 11 years worth of history. History is a huge piece of your credit. So even though they had a charge-off, which wasn't good, don't get me wrong, that history was giving them points. So if I would have removed that history, that would have lowered their scores, even with that charge-off being removed. So you can't just go in and just remove negative items. You have to look at the big picture. What am I actually doing here? And do the teeter-totter. Now, he had a newer, it was an 18-month-old charge-off. That was a good thing to get removed. And we found mistakes with the way they reported it. They were reporting the wrong dates. All 3 bureaus weren't exactly the same. So we were looking for mistakes. So I did remove that one and it helped. But if I were to remove the 11-year-old credit card, it would have hurt. So you have to be able to work with a company that has been doing this for a while and they know what they're doing. I always like to say, if I was going to jump out of an airplane for the first time and I was hooked up to somebody and we're getting ready to jump out of the airplane, and I say, how many times have you jumped with somebody? They said 3 times. I'm going to be like, oh, Nikes, But if I'm jumping and they say I'm doing, this is my 150th jump, I bet that they've been through some tough stuff. I bet that they've been through a nervous jumper with them. They've been through that. So when you are hiring a credit repair company, you better bet your bottom dollar that they've been in business for a while. They have good reviews. Read reviews, and real reviews, and then make sure that they really have an understanding of the codes, the different FICO. There's 56 different versions of FICO.
Right. I was about to ask you to expand on that. 56 different versions of your FICO. And everybody comes to me and says, oh, my credit score is 780. Where did you pull that? Well, I got it online, so that's got to be my score.
Yep.
So
And they don't understand
about that. I know if you've wrapped up the important things to know about choosing one, number one, you want to use ReScore. I don't know of anybody that does it like you do, and that does it as it takes as much care as you do. And I think with our situation, it has given me a new awareness of, hey, just because somebody pulls a 550 or whatever, and I don't even know what mine is right now, and I'm not really concerned about it because there's nothing I can do about it at this moment. But it has given me a new awareness that, hey, we need to help these people because they may be going through something that doesn't show up on a credit report. It doesn't show up on Facebook. because everybody has their highlight reels on Facebook, and they're not telling anybody what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to be referring more and more people to you, because I just think that that quote that you said, your scores are not a character rating, really stuck with me, because there's some really good people out there like yourself from years ago that need a house and deserve a house, and you are the one that can help them get mortgage ready, like you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important too, to keep that big picture in mind, and understanding, the confusion that consumers have, and, just like how deflating they feel when they look on Credit Karma. I mean, I just had this conversation with somebody on Monday, and he was so upset because his Credit Karma scores were 90 points higher than when a lender pulled his credit. And after we peel back the onion layers, I mean, he was pretty upset when I talked to him, and everybody was a son of a gun. I'll say son of a gun. So everybody was a son of a gun. And I let him vent and vent and vent and vent and vent. I listened to him for about probably solid 38 minutes. And then after he was done, I was like, yeah, well, because they get worked up. And so after I talked to him, I'm letting him vent. And I said, I can tell that you're really upset, and I can tell that this really hurt you. And he kind of paused for a second. He was like, yeah. And I said, it was deflating, wasn't it, to think that your scores were here and then to talk to a lender? But I want you to know that it was not that lender's fault. Your Credit Karma scores are not the scores that a lender is going to pull. And they're very, very different. And when we started talking, he said, I think I was embarrassed. I mean, when we get to the end of it, that everybody was a son of a gun. I was a son of a gun. Yeah. The lender was a son of a gun. Everybody's a son of a gun. And at the end of it, he was embarrassed because he wanted to get a house for his family. He thought he could. And then when he called the lender, they kind of knew personally as well, right? His ego was bruised. He was embarrassed he got denied. And so when we talked about that, and I said, this is a very common occurrence that happens. And I want you to understand that calculation that they do with those Vantage scores, so the online scores like Credit Karma, ID Club, Smart Credit, you're doing the right thing by keeping an eye on your credit. But what you want to do is you want to pay attention to the body of the report and not the actual score. The only thing that score is good for is to see if your scores are going up or going down. Because if they're most likely, they're going up with your Credit Karma, they're probably going up with FICO. And if they're going down with Credit Karma, they're probably going down with FICO. But even within FICO, there's 56 different versions. So if you're going to apply for a credit card or a personal loan or anything like that, they're typically pulling from FICO version 8, sometimes 9. And in the mortgage industry, they use the oldest version of FICO there is, which is 2, 4, and 5. And so you can have all the same information, pull it through all these different versions of FICO, same information, same day, and you're going to get a different score because they weigh those different things differently. So with FICO version 2, 4, and 5 that the mortgage industry uses, they grade things very heavily. If you have any type of negative items, you have high credit card balances, things like that. So what we do at ReScore is we really concentrate on helping our clients become mortgage ready. And so if they can be pristine, if you will, or in good standing with FICO version 2, 4, and 5, which is the hardest version of FICO to look good with, that means I know FICO version 8 and 9 and the new version 10 that came out in 2020, you're going to look stellar. So that's what we really, really concentrate on is what does FICO version 2, 4, and 5 want them to look like? And let's get high scores with that.
Yeah. So you said version 10 came out in 2020. Are they anybody using that? Has it been rolled out to the industry yet, or what's the status of that?
No. So FICO version 10 is it's a very excellent predictor of someone's subconscious financial activity, but it's a very, very expensive version of FICO. So I think it's going to be a couple years before you'll see that rolled out. And I don't know if the mortgage industry is ready to spend the billions and billions of dollars it would cost to switch which version of FICO that they use. I mean, people, when FICO version 8 came out, it was all the big, woo, all excitement. And the mortgage industry, still hasn't really picked that up yet. And now there's 2 more versions since FICO version 8 that most lenders use other than the mortgage industry. So it's an excellent predictor. It's just a very, very expensive version of FICO. Okay.
What is someone's the highest credit score that you can get in regards to a mortgage?
That's a great question. So either an 800 or an 850, depending on which bureau that you're looking at. So 850 will say that. And it's interesting because I did a study a few years back to see do people really actually have a perfect credit score, meaning an 850? Well, by the way, I want everyone to know, once you get to 780, the whole world opens up to you. So you don't get anything else from a 781 to an 850 other than a lot of bragging rights. Maybe make yourself a t-shirt. Like that is, that's like, I got an 850 credit score. But 1% of the United States, they found, has an 850 credit score, so a perfect credit score. And what they found is having that 850 credit score, they had at least 10 years worth of history. Everything was in good standing. They had 6 trade lines. Typically that looked like 3 credit cards, 3 installment loans. An installment loan is going to be a home loan, auto loan, or personal loan. And their credit card balances were no more than $6,000. That is what the combination of, the thing that was the most alike with everybody that had that 850 credit score. And it's absolutely insane because it takes 7 years to have perfect credit and 30 days to mess it all up.
Yeah, that's so true. So what's the lowest that you've seen?
Oh, 3, I think it was a 380 something.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we see, what's funny is because of my industry, and I've been doing this for 12 years, it's real funny because when I look at something and a loan officer's like, dang, they're a 620. I'm like, oh, 620. This is great. We can work with this because of what I see, so like a 620 me, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome.
So if somebody does, they come to you and they need to get, I don't know, 50 to, well, I'll back up. Is there a different strategy if I say, hey, Janna, I need to get these people to 680. I don't really care if they get to 720 because we don't have that much time to do that. Is there a different strategy, or do you still just look at the whole report and say, this is everything needs to be fixed or corrected, and this will get you X number of points? What's the strategy there?
So I'll tell you exactly what I do. What I absolutely love, and any lenders that are listening to this is super important for you guys too, that you can do this. So on the body of the lender report, so FICO version 2, 4, and 5 that you guys pull, there's what's called reason codes. The reason codes are located on the first page. It has all the client's personal information, date of birth, social, addresses, things like that. Right below that, you usually have the 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And then it gives the score. That's on the left-hand side. On the right of that, it'll give you 4 to 5 reasons. I look at that to see, and what that is, it's a Cliff's Notes version of what's going on with the body of the report. I can look at a credit report and look at the reason codes and never open up the actual body of the report and tell you exactly what is harming that consumer scores. That's because I've been doing this for so long. And so I if you would have talked to me 6 months into doing this a billion years ago, I probably would have told you all wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a rookie. But now that I've been doing this for so long, I can go through those very quickly. But what I'm doing is I'm looking to see what is causing the most harm to that consumer scores. Because if I can fix that, that means that they're going to get a good pop in scores. So if the first thing on there on that reason code says something about the balances of the revolving accounts are too high, you'll see verbiage like that a lot. What that tells me is they need to pay down their credit card balances. If they pay down their credit card balances, you're going to get a huge pop in scores. And that's the main thing that's causing harm to their score. If the first thing on there says something about derogatory or negative items, that tells me that they have collections that need to be addressed. So if we can address those collections, then that's going to give them the biggest bang to their buck. So you can have someone that the first thing on there shows the revolving line is too high, and they can even have some collections. But sometimes you can go ahead and just have them pay down credit card balances. And I'll tell you guys how to do that in just a second. But pay down the credit card balances, and they can probably go ahead and get by with getting that home loan. Always get people in a home loan. Bottom line, get them in a home loan if you can. Then if they want to be all pristine and get better interest rates, after they close on the home loan, send them to us. We'll get them cleaned up. Now they have a year worth of a home loan, which helps tremendously on their FICO scores. Right. And then they can refinance in 12 to 13 months. So long story short, I'm looking at those reason codes and I'm seeing what's harming the consumer scores the most. And then that's what I'm going to go after to try to correct. If they have a thin credit profile, I'm going to talk to them about, can they become an authorized user to a family member's credit card? We're looking for a credit card that's 5 years or more, good pay history, and low balances. So I do want to say this too. This is very important for people to understand why I'm thinking about it. Credit cards are an excellent way to manipulate a FICO score in a positive direction if you use them wisely. So the things with credit cards that are really, really helpful is you want to make sure that you keep your credit cards open until your grandchildren have children. Do not close them out. Ever. Do not close them out. Okay. So that's very, very important. The other thing that you want to do is you always want to make sure that your credit card balances are 30% or below the limit. The reason why you want to do that is the moment that they tick up over that 30%, you're actually harming your scores rather than helping. So always keep those credit card balances at 30% or below. And about 30 to 60 days before you go in to apply for a loan, pay your credit card balances down to a 3 to 5%. That it's a sweet spot for credit cards and gives you the most points possible. And it's better than having a zero balance. Don't pay credit card balances down to a zero. If you do pay credit card balances down to a zero, it isn't really helping your scores. You have to understand, anyone that's reporting to the bureaus, it costs them money. So that credit card company is not going to reward you because they're not getting any money off of you. So you want to make sure that you leave like a $10 balance if you do pay it down. All right. It's very important. If you are in a financial situation, and I have been there, if you're in a financial situation that you can only pay the minimum balance on the credit cards, I want you to pay about $2 or $5 more, because it tricks the algorithm to let them know that you're okay. That algorithm is going to be a little concerned if you're only paying your credit card minimums, because they're like, wait a minute, what's going on that they can't pay more than that? They must just be squeaking by. They must be a high risk.
Interesting.
Right. So, but if you pay $2 to $5 more, that's not a lot. You know, even if you're paycheck to paycheck right now, you can go without a Starbucks on Wednesday or whatever, pay $2 to $5 more, and it tricks the algorithm where it's telling the algorithm, hey, we're perfectly okay. I have enough money to pay above my minimum balances. So make sure that you do that.
It doesn't necessarily read that you only paid $2 above. It's just saying that you paid above.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's really important. If you can pay more, that's a lot better. But, you know, sometimes we end up in situations where right now, gosh, grocery prices being so high, gasoline prices being so high. I'm just running into so many people that are just really struggling to make ends meet because prices are so incredibly high right now. And more people are living off of their credit cards. Be very careful with that too, guys. Like, credit cards are not a substitution for money. It's not. Credit cards are a way to build your financial freedom, your ability to show that you are fundable, and it's a good tool, but it's not a substitution for money. Be very, very cautious about that. It is easy to whip that thing out when you don't have the money in your checking account.
Yeah, that's kind of a good segue into what was wanting to cover as well, because as the economy is starting to slow, you hear all these reports that, you know, their income is down a little bit, or they've lost their job or whatever. And so more and more people are depending on credit cards to keep their lifestyle the same as it was 3 months ago when the economy was doing better, or whatever that time frame was.
Yeah.
It's certainly slowing down. So credit card debt is exploding right now.
Yes.
Are you seeing that as well, where people are coming to you and saying, man, I've maxed out all my stuff, I need some help, what do I do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it's an interesting shift, because this is something that, you know, in the 12 years that I've been doing this, I see more charge-offs and more credit card debt than ever before. In fact, so much so that I hired a budget coach. She has her own business, but she is like, we send people over to her, because the best thing you can do, never do debt. A debt consolidation loan is okay to do if you can do that and don't get yourself back in credit card debt, and don't pay them completely off and close them. But a consolidation loan is a good idea. A consolidation company is a whole nother animal. So when people call me and say, hey, I want to do, you know, are you guys a consolidation company? 2 times in my profession have I referred someone to a debt consolidation company because it made sense for them. 2 times, Mark, in 12 years. That's the only time it made sense. Debt consolidation companies, you got to be real careful with. It takes about 4.5 to 5 years to recover from, and you have to start all over. So if you can avoid that at all costs, you need to. But my budget coach lady, she does an amazing job with the snowball method and really pointing out what's really a need and what's really a want. And even with me, you know, like, I have a ton of kids, you know, trying to feed and things like that. And they're getting bigger now, and they're not all under my same roof anymore. Thank God, you know, with the prices and everything. But even with that, you know, I've even had to scale back where I say, you know, I'm not buying as many snacks. And I know that sounds silly, but we're all in a situation where we really need to watch. The days of us just being able to blow money, or, you know, go out to eat all the time, or get DoorDash where you're spending double what you normally would. Stop. Right. That's not how you build wealth. And so really right now, especially, I think we all need to be a little more aware of what we're spending money on and what needs and wants are to keep ourselves out of trouble. And if you're using your credit cards to maintain a lifestyle you're used to, you are asking for trouble. And I'm not saying that in a preachy way. I've been there, but I'm just saying maybe cook at home. Maybe not do that DoorDash. Maybe not buy that jacket if you don't have a coat, get a coat, but you already have a pink and blue and purple one. You maybe not need the orange one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So good. So, as people get into trouble with their credit cards, and the phone calls start coming in, and is there something that you could tell the creditors, hey, you know what, don't call me anymore. You can do all this by mail, but I can't take the phone calls anymore. Are there limits to what they can do in reaching out to you to try to get this debt paid?
Yeah, they have some pretty strict guidelines. They always find the loopholes, right? So they have very strict guidelines on who they can call, who they can speak to. They're not supposed to call your work and tell them that they're collecting a debt. They can ask for you. Let's say that I'm a debt collector. I can call your job, and say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Mark Zachary, but I can't say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Mark Zachary because this is a collector and I'm trying to collect money. They can't do that. Yeah. Now, the interesting flip of that is if they call you directly, they have to say, hey, Mark, I am calling in a pursuit of collecting a debt. So they have to tell the consumer that they're trying to collect a debt that they're trying to collect a debt. They can't do tricky tactics. They cannot tell someone else that they're trying to collect a debt on you.
Yeah.
So that's really important. One of the things that you can do is you can ask them to stop calling. Like, please stop calling me. I've hired an attorney, if you have or haven't. I've hired an attorney. They're trying to help me take care of this debt. I want you to stop calling. And then you can write down the date, the time, the employee number that you've asked them to stop calling, especially when it comes to your job. And I think that's where the shame factor comes in, right? You're getting these people browbeating you. I mean, you'll end up getting like post-traumatic stress disorder answering your phone. You don't want to answer it anymore. You don't want to answer it because you're just so done with it. I went through that in my life and it was horrible. I did not want to answer my phone. And it's because every time I answer, it's like, hi, Mrs. Fox, this is so-and-so. I'm like, oh God. So, and it just gets, that's where the shame factor gets in. And that's when the heaviness comes in and everything else. So just tell them you're working with an attorney. You want them to stop calling and you are writing down. And you can also scare them with saying, I record every single phone call. I'm going to give this to my attorney. I've asked you several times to stop calling me.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know if there was a number of times that they could call or anything like that. So good advice there. So, Well, we're coming up on 40 minutes. My conversations with you always fly by, and we would love to have you back. I'm going to tell the guys, hey, we just need to have her as a set guest once a quarter to keep us updated on any changes that is going on in the credit repair industry. And I know one that has come about, and this last couple of weeks there's been pictures and all these comments about the changing of the credit score level, loan level adjustments. I'm sure you've heard about those, and so it looks like that people with lower credit are getting better deals than people with higher credit. What's your take on that? Or if you don't even had one, that's okay. But surely you've had that question.
Oh my gosh, I keep getting the question, and I see all these headlines and again, conflicting information. I've seen some things where they're like, it's always been like this. They're just making headlines out of it. And then, other ones that are saying, no, this is absolutely the fact. And to be honest with you, I'm like, I don't know what the heck is going on with this thing, because I'm getting so many different, conflicting information on it. But there's so many changes going on right now. And if you don't stay on top of it and you don't stay, above the game, you're going to get screwed over, and at the end of the day, remember that there are certain things that are positive that you can do for your credit that's going to help. And there's other things that you may feel like is going to help and it just absolutely doesn't. So talk to a professional. Make sure you know what you're looking for. And always keep in mind, a FICO score is not grading you on how well you stay out of debt. A FICO score is grading you on how well you handle the debt you're in. So, you want to make sure that you are showing yourself as a credit-worthy candidate. But to be honest with you, Mark, with that situation, I really need to do some reading on it because it keeps coming up over and over, and I am just not versed in it at all. And it's confusing.
It is confusing. I think I saw at least 10 pictures of the little Excel spreadsheet of these scores, and this LTV has a big red mark in it, and these low scores with the low LTV, then they're all green. And you said a great thing a while ago, just a second ago. Seek a professional's help on some of this stuff. And when you're dealing with credit, when you're dealing with the biggest financial decision that you'll ever make, you want to make sure you're doing it right. And when I was setting up my company, I asked a guy, I said, what do you do here? What do you do this situation? He said, Mark, let the professionals do what they do and pay them to do it right, because you're going to do it wrong and you have to redo it 2 and 3 times. So, people going into credit repair need to know the risk of doing it themselves and the rewards of having someone like you do it for them, because you know what you're doing. You've been doing this. You've jumped out of this plane way more than 150 times.
Oh, yeah.
And this would be the first jump for them on their own.
Yeah,
so
you're exactly right.
Use the pros that do what they do for a living, so it doesn't end up costing you triple, when it's all said and done.
And years. That's the other thing. You can mess something up and mess up years. Like I think that's a thing that's unique in my industry, is that we're talking about sometimes things get messed up, and you're not just talking about dollars that gets messed up. You're talking about now you have years to recover from what just happened. Yeah.
Wow. But Janna, it's 45 minutes. I'm going to have you back another time, no doubt about it. And I think, we're going to have to start paying you, because you give such good information that so many people can use. And it's not a shame factor. It shouldn't be a shame factor, but it is to a lot of people. And man, this situation with me and my health, it's really changed the way I look at people that have gone through certain things. It just, a lot of it is out of their control. Now you can tell, I think, if you run across somebody that says, it's just a credit card, I didn't want to pay it, and blah. But sometimes bad things happen to good people.
A lot of times.
And they just need people like you to help them out of that situation.
Yeah. And remembering to give yourself grace. And that's the thing. That time's going to go by anyway. So give yourself grace. We're all human. There's a way out of it. You're not the only one. There's lots of people that's been there before. And just be kind to yourself and make sure you hire a professional to help you out so you don't harm yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And why don't you give us how do you get in touch with you now? If I'm dealing with realtors or buyers, you can come through me and we'll run your credit and look at that. And if you need a credit repair, we're going to refer you to Janna and her company. But Janna, if they want to reach out to you directly, number one, is that okay? Or would you rather them go through a realtor or a mortgage guy? Or if they can reach out to you, what's the best way to reach you?
So the best way to reach us, there's 2 ways. You can just give us a call. Our main number is 1-855-2ReScore. Super easy to remember. It's like the number 2 and then ReScore. And then our website is ReScoreYourLife.com. So, and then we have a few blogs on there and, just different things to help our consumers out. So, they can learn that type of things. One of the things that we have a blog on there is making sure they know if they try to do any type of dispute online, they're actually going to harm themselves again, instead of help. So there's just really good basic information on there that I feel is really helpful, but it's ReScoreYourLife.com and 1-855-2ReScore. And then we also have a Facebook page that's ReScore Your Life. Okay, great. Well, guys, definitely reach out to the best in the industry. She will take great care of you. And we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. All right, folks, that's it for another episode of Inside Houston Real Estate.
If there's anything we can help you with, let us know. I'm in the mortgage business. You can reach me at 832-504-9014. Ron Wilshire does a lot of coaching and things like that. You can hear his, we'll put his contact information on the description of the podcast. And then Craig Carter is with Remax Integrity. And he is, like I said, off to be with his mother on her 85th birthday. So we missed him today, but the show goes on even without him. And I got to say, I think it was a better show. I think it was a much better show.
We said that.
That's right. And a reminder, this was Across the Streams media presentation. Be sure and like, listen, share, wherever you get your podcast. And otherwise, we will see you next week on our podcast. And I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Real Estate Pros of Houston. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple, and iHeartRadio, and check out our main website at nextstephomeloans.com for more information on mortgage news, loan programs, and getting pre-approved for a home loan or set up a quick home buying consultation. We'll see you next week with another episode of Real Estate Pros of Houston.